Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles Sebastian, and welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamers Pro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And today, we got some Bombshell audio that we want to get into here today. But before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now, as you guys know, NFL season is around the corner. I'm not an NFL guy, but I know the interest right now in the NFL is starting to ramp up, given that the season is about to start. And with that, one of the major storylines coming into this season is surrounding son of Hall of Fame football player Shedeur Sanders. Right? Shedeur Sanders, going into the NFL draft, was picked to be certainly a first-round pick and probably a top pick, number 1, number 2, and number 3, top 5 pick, right? But leading up to that, Shedeur was always in the headlines, right? He was a popular guy, son of his dad, who's very outspoken, braggadocious, flamboyant in your face. And the son took in his dad's footsteps, right? And while a lot of people, celebrated him, I'm sure it's something that turned a lot of people off. So when the draft began and they started to see him slip, he didn't go in the first round. He didn't go in the second round. He didn't go in the third round. People began to sound the alarm bells. And one of the people that sounded the alarm bells was Mel Kiper on ESPN 3 months ago when he was talking about the fall of Shedeur Sanders in the NFL draft. So what we want to do is we want to play what he had to say then, and then want to come back and continue on with the show. Take a listen to what he had to say then.
In the history of NFL draft drops, let me tell you, the Shedeur Sanders free fall might take the cake. Not a single team selecting in the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft took the Colorado quarterback. The Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year and son of Deion led the FBS in completion percentage, 4th in passing yards. Just a couple months ago was in the conversation for the top pick. Heck, right before the draft started on Thursday, he was minus 600 to go in the first round, and yet he is still out there. A shock.
I think it's disgusting. I don't understand what the heck's going on with this. 5th player on my board. It's never happened before in 47 years where a player that high has dropped this far into the 4th round. A quarterback that's sitting there in round 4 with other quarterbacks being taken who aren't as good as Shedeur, aren't even close, in my opinion, in terms of accuracy, toughness. Arm strength is certainly more than good enough. I don't see, outside of not being have the rocket arm and the 4.6 speed and the big frame, the 6'3", 230-pound frame, what is he lacking? Somebody's going to have to explain that one to me. 4th round, Kirk Cousins went. 4th round, Dak Prescott went. Worked out pretty good for them. It's just that Shedeur was projected a lot higher than they were. That's why we're having this discussion.
Excellent. So you heard what he had to say. So this afternoon, one of our viewers sent me a message on Instagram. By the way, if you're not following me on Instagram, my handle is CTABANZ. And he's essentially like, yo, check this out. Right? And I think it came from the account Basketball Forever, where they were playing some sound of essentially a whistleblower who went on the Dan Patrick show to essentially say that he knows that NFL teams, and the NFL, was telling teams to not draft Shedeur Sanders because they wanted to make an example out of him. Yes, you heard me right. Take a listen to the sound here on the Dan Patrick show.
And I'll tell you this much here, what I heard from someone that's in the NFL, that the NFL told other, don't draft him. Do not draft him. We're gonna make an example out of him. And this came from a very good source, And he said that, I won't say who, somebody called the Cleveland Browns and said, don't do that. Draft
Really?
him. Yep, draft him. Don't do that. Because they weren't gonna draft him either. They weren't gonna draft him.
Excellent. So you heard what he had to say there. Now, this sound just further solidifies a lot of what people thought was going on, which was he was being shut out and he was being taught a brutal lesson. Because if you look at him as a player in college, he was being projected to be a first-round pick. Where you have him in the first round is irrelevant. He was a first-round pick. So to go from being a first-round pick to falling all the way to the 5th round spoke volumes. Then we started to get information about how he was during his interviews with the teams. And I forgot the reporter that brought out the information that really was damaging, that Shedeur just wasn't a good interview and all of that. And then it seemed to be like a smear campaign against the guy. Here's my opinion about this from afar, because again, I'm not an NFL guy. I'm not a football guy. Although I'll say this, Deion Sanders was the first person that ever made me watch a college game and a football college game. I never had any interest in watching a college football game ever. Even my wife, who doesn't watch sports at all, we watched them play. So my take on this is this. Look, as someone that followed this story loosely and from afar, and I was aware of Shedeur Sanders, to me, it was clear what I think was going on. What I think was going on was they were looking at Shedeur, who was a show-off, who was in your face. He was loud. He loud in the sense that he was loud about the way he moved around with his jewelry. He was just, he was flexing. He was flexing a lot. And while a lot of people liked that, it turned off a lot of people because they felt like he wasn't showing any humility. The other thing I think that happened was he was presumptuous, meaning it was almost like a done deal that he was going to go to the NFL, be a top pick in the draft, make all of this money, and be a big star. And Shedeur kind of carried himself with that air like, I know what's about to happen. Like, I know what it is, right? And I think the NFL saw this, and they decided that, no, you're not going to come in here doing what you think you're going to do. I understand that your dad is Deion Sanders, but we're going to teach you a lesson that you need to be humbled, which now leads us to his father. Now, Deion Sanders, if you know anything about him, especially as a coach, Deion is outspoken, right? And because of his outspokenness, he has a lot of supporters, but he also has a lot of detractors. A lot of people don't like Deion Sanders. A lot of people don't like the way he goes about his business. I'm not one of them, right? I'm not one of them. I don't dislike Deion Sanders, nothing like that. Nothing with what he does bothers me, threatens me, makes me feel any kind of way at all, right? Because he's just somebody that's living the way he wants to live his life. There are a lot of outspoken people out there that people support, and they're quiet people. Everybody has their own cup of tea. But for me personally, it didn't bother me. But for a lot of people, it did. Because Deion was very, 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 you could say arrogant, very confident. He wore his religion on his sleeve. He would call out reporters. In certain cases, people would feel like he would make press conferences into a spectacle. And he was never afraid to just be himself. And I guess for some reason, the NFL felt like we don't want that. And maybe the larger message they were trying to send is, because the quarterback is the most important position in football. At least that's the way they talk about it. And they're the ones that get all the visibility, mostly in the NBA and the NFL in terms of the stars. So maybe the NFL just didn't want a guy like that to go out there, be a star quarterback, and you never really know. Look at Cam Newton. Cam Newton, when he was playing in the NFL, clean cut, shaven, and all of that. And now you look at Cam Newton, it's like he's expressing himself. But maybe Cam felt at the time, and I don't know Cam, I'm just looking at it from afar, coming to my own conclusion. Maybe Cam felt like that was how he needed to present himself in order to not be too much of a distraction and make people feel uncomfortable. I don't know. I think there was another player, I can't remember, a few years ago that Michael Vick said he had to cut his hair off. I can't remember the guy that he said. Colin Kaepernick. Where, Colin Kaepernick had the afro, and that bothered some people. It didn't bother me, but it bothered some people. And at one point he said that he should cut his hair. Right? Now, why did he say that? Because he may feel that maybe some people will be uncomfortable with a dude walking around with an afro. Not me, right? Maybe some people will. So this thing exists, especially in the NFL. Not in the NBA. The NBA, they allow players to express themselves, have tattoos, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In the NFL, is a totally different game. So to hear now this whistleblower essentially say that, look, the NFL told teams not to draft him, I can believe that. I can 100% believe that. So the question to the audience is simply this. Do you believe that the NFL came together and said, we're going to teach this guy a lesson? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section. We'll catch you on the next show.